make sure we acknowledge you here. Thank you. Okay, yes. On the 17th, and what time? 5 o'clock? 6 o'clock, okay. All right.
Good evening.
Celeste, you divided us.
6 p.m.
We're gonna make sure there's a tie.
No, we
just
did
so you
5.
know.
That's 6, okay.
It's us against you
Got it.
Yeah, we're gonna make sure there's at least one tie. You'll have to decide.
guys. We'll be the decider.
It always cracks me up when Brett is deciding what he like freaks out.
He does.
He freaks out every time.
Y'all have
All right,
I'm gonna say.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Only did it this year. I'll whack it really hard. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Casa Grande Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for Thursday, October 3rd. If you would, please stand and join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're off.
All right. Kathy, if you would note for the record that all members are present except the chairman. Oh,
Member Vanderhayden?
Here.
Member Hubbard?
Here.
Member Peters?
Here.
Member Estrada?
Yeah.
Vice Chair Garza?
here.
Chairman Benedict? Absent.
All right. Director Tice, any changes to the agenda?
No changes, but I would like to acknowledge that Commissioner Estrada, this is his last meeting on the commission. He's served for 2 terms, and he's not eligible for a new appointment. So I want to thank Anthony for all his contributions to the community and service to the commission. So thank you for 6 years of your life.
Thank you.
That's why he's chipper tonight.
Thank you for your service.
And then he's getting married.
Yeah.
Enjoy your retirement.
Yeah.
All right. Item D, we have the minutes before you, commissioners. Any discussion on the minutes of September 5th?
Like to make a motion?
All right.
Make a motion that we approve the minutes of September 5th, 2024.
Second?
All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Moving on to the consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered routine matters and will be enacted by one motion and one roll call vote of the commission. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a commission member or member of the public so requests, in which the event item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence of the agenda. Commissioners, any item from the consent agenda that you would like pulled? Yes, Sam. Oh, can you hear me? Oh, sorry. I will talk louder. Commissioners, any members want to pull the consent agenda item we have before you? Members of the public, would anyone like to pull consent item E1? All right. Do I hear a motion moving forward?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda items.
Second.
All right. Go ahead, Kathy. Yes.
Member Aldred,
Aye.
Member Vanderhayden,
Aye.
Member Hubbard,
Yes.
Member Peters,
Aye.
Member Estrada,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Garza.
Aye. All right. Call to the public. The public is invited to make comments to the commission regarding matters that are not on the agenda. The commission cannot respond to these comments, but can direct staff to follow up as appropriate. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes. Would any of members of the public like to address the commission? Seeing none, we'll move on to new business. Item G1, a public hearing for a conditional use permit for a model home complex within the Arroyo Grande Phase 3 subdivision. Romina.
Thank you, and good evening for everyone. We are here to hold a public hearing regarding Resolution DSA 24-00119, which has been requested by Chad Plain. This request seeks a conditional use permit for a model home complex in Arroyo Grande. The project is located to the north of Casa Grande at the intersection of Trekkel Road and McCartney Road. The surrounding zoning primarily consists of residential uses as well as planned area developments, urban ranch, and commercial residential zones. This conditional use permit is requested to authorize the establishment of a home sales complex within the Arroyo Grande subdivision. The complex will be located in Phase 3 of the housing development, covering lots 190 through 95. The following designations have been made for specific lots to accommodate sales, construction, and parking needs. Lots 194 and 95, with a total area of 19,600 square feet, will be future public off-site parking that complies with all required regulations. Lot 90 will be designated for off-site construction parking, and the middle, lot 91, 199, 192, and 193 are currently model homes, but will be repurposed, which lot 193 will be designated for the sales office, and 191 will be used for the construction office. According to the 1768-120B of the City Code, the Commission must be the following to approve a conditional permit. It meets all the requirements. And for this request, we have met the public hearing notification requirements outlined on the City Code. At this time, we have not received any inquiries or comments regarding the proposal. Staff recommends the Planning Commission to approve the conditional use permit associated resolution DSA 24-00119 for a model home sales complex within Arroyo Grande, subject to these conditions. And among these conditions, an addition of a landscaping plan that meets the standards of the Arroyo PAD must be provided before building permits are issued. Thank you for your attention, and do you have any questions?
Commissioners, any questions for Romina?
No.
All right, would the applicant or their representative like to address the commission?
I am not Chad Plain. It's his wedding anniversary, so I'm volunteering. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Sure. Would you just say your name and address for the record?
Danny Cook, my home address.
Your business address.
221 West Baseline Road, Suite 101, Tempe, Arizona, 85283.
Thank you. Any questions for Danny? No. All right, thank you.
No problem.
All right, this is a public hearing. Any members of the public like to speak on item G1?
Good evening, hi. Nancy Wood, 513 Speckle Road, Casa Grande, Arizona. And I'm just going to briefly say that any of the developers that are working on open ground, especially in the areas with all the construction, a lot of the burrowing owls have been moving around quite a bit, so if they would check their property and survey before they do any groundwork, that I just ask that they take in that consideration and look out for them. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission.
That's all you, Anthony.
I'd like to make a motion.
Thank you, Member Peters.
I'd like to make a motion that the commission approve the request for a conditional use permit for a mobile home complex within the Arroyo Grande Phase 3. This is covered under resolution number DSA-24-00119.
Second.
All right, Kathy, if you would call.
Do we put
roll.
conditions?
Absolutely. Member Alderette?
Did you say the conditions?
Aye.
Member Vanderhayden?
Yes.
Member Hubbard?
Yes.
Member Peters?
Aye.
Member Estrada?
Yes.
And Vice Chair Garza.
Aye. Member Peters, that was a motion to approve that item with the conditions, correct?
Correct.
All right.
Sorry, I missed that.
Thank you. Thank you, Member Estrada. Way to go out with a bang. All right, moving on to item G2, public hearing for a conditional use permit and associated resolution for a convenience food restaurant. Sam?
Excellent, good evening. Yes, so this is DSA 00166, request by Doug Fowler for a conditional use permit for a convenience food restaurant at Cottonwood Village Suite 111, 973 East Cottonwood Lane. So here's our location. This is the south side of Cottonwood Lane. The red box there is the total parcel. The green box is where this Suite 111 is going to be located, and this is where they're requesting the CUP for. Here's another view of that location. You can see this is looking southward from kind of above the Safeway there, and it will be on the right side here. It's a mixed-use development. We got the gas station on the corner, and as you can see, there's plenty of parking. So should be no worries there. So the overview, Malad and Afsoon, owners of the Sweet Village Bakery, are looking to expand and create a Chipotle Panda Express style restaurant serving Mediterranean dishes. They will be designed to be ordered a la carte style and taken to go to be consumed off premise. They will occupy a space that will be 1,491 square feet suite in the Cottonwood Village Shopping Center. This will be a separate space from the location of Sweet Village Bakery, but they will operate both locations. This use meets the definition of a convenience food restaurant and requires conditional use permit in the B2 zone. One of the zoning conformances is that site improvements such as the buildings or structures shall be separated from any residential zones by at least 50 feet. So the nearest residential zone is approximately 170 feet away. So this requirement has been met. And you can see here that there are pretty much business zone districts surrounding this location. Here we have our standard review criteria for conditional use permits. I want to highlight the first criteria, that the site for the proposed use is adequate in size and topography to accommodate the use, and that all yard expenses, parking, loading, landscaping, etc., are adequate to properly relate the use of the land and the uses in the city. This site is adequate in size and topography. The site is co-located with other general retail, including businesses such as Cunningham Salon, Kelly Tea Nails, and Long Wong's, amongst other retail and office uses. So as you can see, it's a general retail center. This is an excellent use of that space. And then the last one I want to highlight here is that conditions stated in the approval are deemed necessary to protect the public, health and safety and general welfare. Staff is recommending a condition that prohibits this use from having a drive-through facility without going through a future review. And with that condition, this criteria is met as well. So this application meets all of the review criteria. Here are the public notification requirements. They have all been met, and staff has not received any inquiries or comments about this proposal. So at this time, staff recommends the Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit and associated resolution DSA 24-00166 for a convenience food restaurant with the following conditions: that this conditional use permit is only valid for a convenience food restaurant or similar use that does not include a drive-through facility. I would be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Any questions for Sam? It's a beautiful picture. All right. Is the applicant here that would like to address the, oh, great.
Evening, everyone. Doug Fowler, he's out of the town. I'm the owner of the Sweet Village Bakery. I'm here for any question.
Name, address.
My name is Milad. Address is 973 East Cottonwood Lane, Suite 108 currently.
Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, this is a public hearing. Would any members of the public like to address the commission? All right, we'll close the public hearing and back to the commission.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the conditional use permit and associated resolution DSA 24-00166 for a convenience food restaurant with the following conditions.
Second.
All right, Kathy, if you would call for a vote?
Member Aldrade, I'm sorry, Aldrade.
Aye.
Member Vanderhayden,
Yes.
Member Hubbard,
Yes.
Member Peters,
Aye.
Member Estrada,
Yes.
Vice Chair Garza.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
All right, item G3, public hearing and recommendation to City Council for a request by Dallas Giddens for a zone change from R3 to B2.
Excellent.
Sam.
All right, so we're here to hold a public hearing and consider forwarding a recommendation to City Council for the request by Dallas E. Giddens for a zone change from R3 to B2. All right, here's our location. We are on the northwest corner of East Florence Boulevard and North Potabom. This is located right behind the Sonic drive-through and the current Giddens Tire Pros. So the applicant owns approximately 2.47 acres at 805 North Potabom, directly north of Sonic and Giddens Tires, that he's requesting be rezoned from R3 to B2 to accommodate commercial development. A little bit of history on this lot is it was originally zoned B2, but there was a request for a zone change from B2 to to R3. They were going to do multifamily. That did not come to fruition. And now they are asking to go back to B2 as it allows for commercial improvements in that district. And you can see on the picture on the right there that the B2 really is a good fit for this location. There's it's Lowe's to the east there and more shopping centers. On a successful zone change, the development will need to be submitted as a major site plan for the Planning Commission consideration. However, the provided conceptual site plan conveys an intent to develop this site as an automotive repair service, which will also require a conditional use permit. So we should be, if you approve, if it is ultimately approved, we will be back in front of you before too long so that we can get going on moving forward. So here is an image of the surrounding businesses. You can see the Giddens Tire Pros along the Sonic Drive-In, and then our project site there, east of the Office Max and west of the Lowe's. So this is already a pretty commercially developed area. Staff feels that B2 is a very appropriate use for this area. So we have 3 zone change review criteria. Here are the 3 of those. So the first one, this action is consistent with the city's general plan, including the goals, policies, and applicable elements. The general plan designation for this area is community corridor, and both the current zoning of R3 and the new proposed zoning of B2 are listed as appropriate zone districts within this category. In the image there, you can see that all of that pinkish color is community corridor, and then above that is our neighborhoods district. Our second consideration is a rezoning conforms to the general plan as it proposes land uses, densities, and intensities. This conceptual plan provided for the proposed B2 zones proposes its automotive repair service. This use is allowed, as I said before, with a conditional use in the B2 zone, which, as noted above, is an appropriate zoning category within the community corridor land use designation. And that the proposed zone change is necessary and proper at this time to meet the land use needs of the residents of the city. The R3 zoning is a medium to high density zoning classification. This is going to be your apartments, that type of multifamily. And recently we have done our housing inventory or our housing assessment. And we found that currently, with just what is zoned and what is in process, that we have sufficient medium high density multifamily housing zoned sites to provide sufficient housing opportunities in that housing range, that multifamily, for the next 10 years. So at this point, rezoning to B2 returns the property to its original zone classification and allows for an appropriate commercial land use and expansion of the existing businesses. So we are not losing any housing opportunities by making this rezone. And then in accordance with the House Bill 2547, before adopting any zoning ordinance or zoning ordinance text amendment, the legislative body shall consider a housing impact statement regarding the impact of zoning ordinance or zoning ordinance text. So this is pretty much saying, you know, if you're going to change the zone from housing, you got to look at the housing need versus your housing supply or ability to develop housing. And as noted before, the recent housing needs and supply study indicated that there is sufficient sites that will meet our multifamily zoning needs. So in this case, removal of 2.47 acres from the multifamily inventory will have no impact on the ability to meet our community's housing needs. So accordingly, this zone change should have no adverse effect on housing supply or cost. So public notification, here are requirements. All of these have been met. And to date, staff has not received any inquiries or comments about this proposal. So at this time, staff recommends that the Planning Commission forward to the City Council a recommendation to approve DSA 24-00157, a zone change from R3 to B2, located at the property located at 805 North Pottobomb Avenue. Are there any questions?
Questions for Sam? No. All right. Would the applicant like to address the commission? Not here?
He's in Texas.
He's in Texas. Okay.
Everybody's gone.
All right. This is a public hearing. Open the public hearing if any of the public would like to address this item.
Hello again. Nancy Wood, 513 Speckle Road, Casa Grande, Arizona. Just want to mention for the developer of this site that there are known owls living adjacent to their property and around their property, so that if they do groundwork and start construction, that they check before they do any of things like that for the indication whether there are owls actually there at the time. Again, because of all the construction that's going on in the city, which is a good thing, but it's pushing the owls into new locations all the time. So oftentimes, even if they haven't necessarily seen them there, they could be there at any time, especially since these projects take time to develop. And during the time now until they start construction, that could change. So it's just always best to check very, soon to the time before they start groundwork. So if they could do surveys and things like that. There are owls that have actually been trying to live in the parking lot of some of these locations, and they live in a lot of different places that are kind of awkward for them to live because they've had been losing their habitat. And so they just try and exist where they can. So I just wanted to mention that there are known owls very close to this location.
Thank you, Nancy. All right. I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Thank you.
I'd like to recommend that we forward to City Council recommendation to approve DSA 2400157, a zone change from R3 to B2 for the property located at 805 North Pottybomb Avenue.
Second.
All right, Kathy, please.
Member Algerette,
Aye.
Member Vanderhayden,
Yes.
Member Hubbard,
Yes.
Member Peters.
Just a quick comment. That when we get one of our local business owners that are looking to expand their footprint, that's a good thing for our community, it really is. So I'm voting for it. Aye.
Member Estrada,
Yes.
Vice Chair Garza.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
All right, item G4, public hearing and forwarding a recommendation to City Council for a major amendment to the Mission for Del Rio PAD. Jim.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. So as you introduced this item, this request is for an amendment to the Mission Por Del Rio Planned Area Development Zone, affecting an area within that zone district known as Parcel K, outlined in blue here on the screen. A little background about this site. Mission Por Del Rio is an approximate 250-acre planned area zone district that sits in between the Mission Valley neighborhood and Peart Road, and from Quartzon on the south up to the Rodeo alignment on the north. This planned area development zone is predominantly entitled for single-family development with an open space spine in the middle, but towards the south, closer to Quartzon, the area is designated for commercial, high and medium density residential. Here's a layout of the current planned area development zone, where you can see that most of the single families further north, and then towards the Peart and Quartzon intersection, there is an area designated for high density residential, about 16 dwelling units per acre in orange. And that red there at the hard corner is designated for commercial. And the area in yellow, Parcel K, is the area that is subject to the proposed amendment. It's just shy of 12 acres, and it's currently designated for medium density residential. However, I should say that normally when we think about medium density residential, we think of something greater than 4.7 dwelling units per acre. But that is its current density. And the reason why it's considered medium is anything over 4.5 dwelling units per acre. So it's just over what would be considered low density. But in the current plan, that area is intended for single-family attached homes. And within that PAD guide, it showed a lotting pattern, and the intention was is this area would be platted as individual lots for a single-family attached product like you see in the photo here. But even though, some people may call that a duplex, it is, except that each unit would be separately owned versus rented. The reason for the amendment is that this area does not have certificates of assured water supply. So there would be an inability to subdivide the property into the 55 lots that you see on the screen at a 4.7 dwelling unit per acre density. And so the request is to amend the PAD to allow the same density of 4.7 dwelling units per acre, but allow for this area to offer for rent product. And some examples of that type of product are seen below. You can still have a very similar product that could otherwise have been built if the property was able to be subdivided. It's just it would all be rented. The PAD amendment does allow for different types of medium density product other than attached. You could have a build to rent that you see on that middle picture with the palm trees present, or you could have more of a rented townhome concept. When reviewing amendments to planned area developments, this is the following criteria that needs to be evaluated, and the staff report goes into these criteria in greater detail, but I just want to focus on the two highlighted items. The first is with regard to conformance to the city's general plan. So consideration of the community need for multifamily is a factor, provided that within the general plan there is some forecasting that the goal for the city is to have the majority of the housing, between 60 and 70%, be for single-family residential development. And as discussed in a previous presentation this evening, we did a housing inventory to determine where we're at with the supply for multifamily product. But this property was actually factored in that study as having existing multifamily entitlement, since it was traditionally designated at medium density. And so whether that medium density is technically individually owned or rented, it fits a kind of a multifamily nuance. And there's no increase of density proposed with this amendment. At 4.7 dwelling units per acre, it's considered very low medium density, since single-family development is allowed up to 4.5 dwelling units per acre. So we are okay with this request, and we don't find that it would add to the inventory of what we have already evaluated for multifamily. This area is within the neighborhood's land use designation of the Casa Grande 2030 general plan. Within the neighborhood's category, density of up to 24 dwelling units per acre would be supported. However, as I mentioned, the density proposed here is less than a quarter of that maximum density. One of the goals is that the spatial form and design of developments should be appropriate to adjoining land uses. This area is next to the Mission Valley single-family neighborhood, and so that is probably the area where there is potentially the most compatibility concern. However, medium density at such a low medium density is rather appropriate here because it's transitional to the more intense designation of high-density residential closer to Peart and commercial. at the hard corner. So this provides a good segue of intensity from Peart eastward. PADs are required to comply with the city's zoning ordinance, and essentially a planned area development zone is a customized zone district that is allowed to propose some unique and tailored standards. However, it is required to follow the 2022 residential design standards for planned area developments, which this PAD proposes to do. They're proposing a maximum building height of 28 feet, and there are appropriate setbacks and landscape buffers embedded within the document that would ensure compliance with the residential design standards. Also, with regard to conformance to the city's zoning ordinance, a little bit of background in terms of the next steps. If this PAD amendment is recommended that council approve, and council does indeed approve it, the applicant would then need to proceed with the submittal of a major site plan, and then also platting if this area was able to be parceled into individual lots in the future. At the time of either a plat or major site plan is when we require traffic, utility, and drainage reports, and the project would not be able to be approved on a platting or on a major site plan level unless those reports found that the maintenance of the infrastructure could occur at an acceptable level of service. I do want to say, I didn't create a slide for it, but with regard to compliance with House Bill 2547, housing supply, because this area does not propose a decrease in housing nor an increase in housing, it would maintain that same density. There really is no net change. Some alternatives is the applicant could have requested an amendment increasing the density, but out of sensitivity to the surrounding neighborhoods and the amount of multifamily that's already within the area, there's no net change. And this does give an opportunity to provide a niche missing middle type multifamily product that could potentially be quite successful because of the unique nature of that limited density. With regard to the public notification process, we met that which was required by city code. There was one inquiry received from a Mission Valley resident who was not in favor of multifamily development. I did reach out indicating that the density was not that much greater than of a single family neighborhood. Mission Valley's probably at like a 3.7 or 3.8 dwelling unit per acre density, and the product of a 4.7 dwelling unit per acre density is not the type of development that one thinks of when one thinks of multifamily with walk-up garden-style apartments, etc., which would normally be at a much more intense density. So with that, I have the wrong slide in here, but I can ad-lib. So pay no attention to the wording on the screen. Staff does recommend that Planning Commission forward a recommendation to approve the Mission Port Del Rio Planned Area Development DSA 24-00080. And there is one condition of record, which is our boilerplate condition regarding dedication of right-of-way. If necessary for Courtson Road, we can seek that prior to the time of building permit issuance. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Jim?
Jim, the property located to the west of this site, what is the zoning on that? currently?
Directly to the west is, at that hard corner, is 10 acres for commercial use.
Okay. And then to the north of that is the multifamily?
Correct.
Okay, so. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
I have a quick question. Jim, the Mission Valley residential on the east side, do those lots have a view fence?
There may be someone in the audience that can confirm. I don't know. There is a tract of land between the backs of those houses and this zone district, and that tract is maintained by the Mission Valley HOA. So sometimes when there's adjacent open space tracts, there may be, but I can't visualize that right now.
Yeah, I was wondering when this property goes in, they'll be required to put up a standard wall eventually with the site plan process, I'm assuming.
We would look at that with the major site plan review in terms of what the most appropriate screening would be.
Okay.
There is embedded as a development standard that structures would have to be no closer than 25 feet from that boundary, and and within that 25 feet, there'd be a minimum of a 15-foot landscape buffer, just to provide some additional separation. So within that, whatever type of appropriate screening determined during that review could lead to, a couple of different product options.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? All right. Would the applicant or the representative like to address the commission?
Thank you. Jessica Sarkissian with Upfront Planning, 1811 South Alma School Road, 283 in Mesa, Arizona, 85210, I believe, yes. Thank you so much. Exactly what he said. There's a couple things I just wanted to clarify on this. So one that he didn't exactly hit on was parcel K is currently required to be attached, and we are requesting, and that's part of the application, is that it's no longer required to be attached. So it could be detached for rent, where you have the build to rent for their homes. So it could be homes, and eventually we also put in some criteria in there, which we also added. We kept all the setbacks and all the requirements and density the same as what was originally approved. We did add more standards in case in the future it ever is to be lotted out and sold. The goal would be for the owner is they would like to do a forced sale, but given the situation with the water certificates, he's just trying to provide opportunities and options. So currently, there is a perimeter setback requirement in there, but there weren't any standards for if it was individually lotted. So we put those in there so that there wouldn't be zero everywhere. So now if it was to be developed, it would look like a standard subdivision. And the goal is to make it look like a standard subdivision. It is a narrow piece, so there's not a whole lot of options you can do with layouts. And so that was our main intention, was to take off the attached requirement so that they could go in with detached product if they had found a user for that. And we don't currently, I know there was an article about it, we don't currently have a developer. We're just trying to make more options given the housing situation and the issues with the water certificate.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this is a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing for any members of the public that would like to address this item.
Hi, my name is Holly Adams, 2215 North Magdalena Place, Casa Grande, Arizona. I have a lot of concerns about the water certificate, and that if they don't have one now and they can't continue with the single-family attached homes, that we are now going to skirt that and let them be the rental where they are like a business, and so they don't have to have that certificate. As somebody who owns a home in Casa Grande, that is concerning to me, that we are not following the rules that were put in place to make sure that there was an accurate, I guess, amount of water for the homes that were built here, or the supply of water. And so I don't understand all of the stuff that you guys are talking about, but I just find it really concerning. I mean, I just played with some math today about, single-family homes versus, apartments, multifamily. And I know that the rent-to-own don't have to have those water right or those 100-year water rights or whatever, but it is concerning to me. And I just want to voice that somebody who has a family here, who has a home here, I just don't understand how, and maybe I'm missing something big, but how something can be approved where they don't have the right and it's going to be basically the exact same product. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public?
No, my name's Nancy Wood, 513 Speckle Road. And I came in to let everybody know that is involved with this area. And it's a large area between Courtson and all the way to Rodeo and actually north of Rodeo. Was brought to our attention that from the residents that live in close by to this property that there are a lot of burrowing owls. And we've gone out and found a lot of locations where they do live in this large area, not just this one location where they're talking about this evening, but all the way around. So any of the landowners that are going to do development in this area need to be aware that there are a fairly large number of owls that already reside in these locations. And it would be really nice if some of the planning that went into these kind of locations where there were open spaces that were going to be intended for the area, that they maybe work in some habitat that the owls could move into, that they're being dislocated from. They do try and do their best, and that they move to locations where they can adapt as much as they can. But if the city and the developers and landowners would do more thinking about providing these habitats, there wouldn't be as much conflict with the development as it comes in, because if they planned for it and set aside some locations and looked into places where they could move to, that it would be easier for the development and the construction that would go on, rather than an immediate problem with the development and things like that. That some of that could be addressed ahead of time so it wouldn't interfere with the construction. So I was just wanting to make it aware that all this area has a large number of them living there. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Jim, if you would reach out to the property owner and explain the assured water supply and how it's regulated by the state, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you. Any questions or any discussion?
I'd just like to say that I appreciated Jim making the comment about missing middle, and that this site really can kind of serve that different type of multifamily development we don't really have a lot of here. A lot of what we do have and is being built is garden-style apartments. Not everybody wants to live in one of those, but they are living in multifamily. So I do think allowing this to go for more multifamily development and give more options is a good idea. And with that, I would like to make a motion to forward a recommendation to City Council for a major amendment to the Mission Port Del Rio Planned Area Development, DSA 24-00080, with the one condition.
Second.
All right, Kathy, roll call vote, please.
Member Aldrete,
Aye.
Member Vanderhayden,
Yes?
Member Hubbard,
Yes.
Member Peters,
Aye.
Member Estrada,
Yes.
Vice Chair Garza.
Aye. All right, item G5, public hearing, considering a request from EPS Group on behalf of DC Truckle LLC for the Agave House. This one is Jim's.
So, correction, it's not for the Agave House, but for the Casa Grande Skilled Nursing Facility.
Thank you.
No problem.
South of the Agave House.
Yes. And I do want to point out that there are 2 applications being considered this evening for the Casa Grande Skilled Nursing Facility. There's a conditional use permit, which is necessary to allow that type of use, a skilled nursing facility use, in the zone district of R2, and then also a major site plan consideration. And it is true, if you look at those 2 file numbers, this is 5 years old. It has been in the works all this time. So a little background and information about the proposal is in 2019, 5 acres of property was zoned R2 with conditions of record from the B2 and CO zone districts with an intent to construct a skilled nursing facility. The reason for the zone change request to R2 is that this type of facility is only permitted in a residential type zone district with the approval of a conditional use permit, and it is not permitted within either the B2 or the CO zone that the property was designated prior to 2019. The site is located just south of the Agave House and a little bit to the east, of course, southeast of the Quartz and Treckle intersection. There were a number of conditions of record placed on that R2 zoning in order to ensure that any development on these 5 acres really helped mitigate compatibility concerns with the Cottonwood Ranch single-family neighborhood that sits to the east and south. Some of those conditions of record included a limitation of building height. Structures were limited to single story, and permitted uses were limited to a maximum height of 20 feet. Conditionally permitted uses were allowed to have a maximum height of 28 feet. And all buildings other than accessory buildings like carports and that type of thing shall be set back a minimum distance of 75 feet from the property's south and east boundary. And there shall be a minimum of a 20-foot landscape buffer from the south and east boundaries. Here's an excerpt of the major site plan. And as you can see to the right, how it fits with the overall development of the property as is. Of course, you do have the Agave House under development to the north and west. And the primary access into the site comes from an access road that has already been constructed off of Treckle that allows access into the Agave House, would allow access into this skilled nursing facility, and would also accommodate access on the undeveloped parcel that sits between the skilled nursing facility and Treckle. They are proposing an emergency access route through the Agave House site, and it continues north up to Quartzen for emergency purposes only. The skilled nursing facility itself would ultimately be just over 63,000 square feet. It's an 88-room skilled nursing facility providing short-term services for patients. The height is just under that 28-foot maximum at 27 feet 2 inches. It is single story. The first phase of the development that you see here on the screen is almost 40,000 square feet, and then an addition would occur later to the north. You can kind of see its tracings there on the site plan. And the building does sit 82 feet from the eastern boundary and 93 feet from the southern boundary. I do also want to point out that to the east sits an open space tract belonging to Cottonwood Ranch. At its narrowest is 30 feet, but that does provide some good buffer between this use and the Cottonwood Ranch neighborhood. When reviewing conditional use permits, this is the criteria that gets evaluated, and the staff report goes into these points more thoroughly, but I want to focus on the two highlighted items. The first, we look at whether the site for the proposed use is adequate to accommodate what's being proposed and whether or not it properly relates to land and uses in the vicinity. So we are, as I have already somewhat covered, is this is going to be a single-story building, not taller than 27 feet 2 inches, which is similar to the height allowed in the neighboring Cottonwood Ranch subdivision. When looking at that landscape buffer along the south and east boundary, there's over 40 trees that are proposed to be planted. And of course, the building sits 82 feet from the east property boundary. There's an additional 30-foot landscape buffer abutting the Cottonwood Ranch homes to the east. And then there's a 93-foot building setback to the south property boundary. They are proposing partial view fencing along the east property line, matching the Agave House's fencing that extends to the north. And we are intentionally requesting partial view fencing because solid fencing would create kind of a boxed in effect in that area, which we were trying to avoid. Here is a photo taken several months ago when Agave House was a little bit more in a state of construction than it is now. But you can see that 30-foot open space tract. Basically, there'll be a partial view fence, which I think Agave House has already constructed it, but it matches that profile of the fencing that you see there. And there's an additional 20 feet of landscaping that sits on the other side of that fence. So there's about a 50-foot landscape buffer with the fence more or less in the middle. The other criteria I want to talk about is whether or not we want to impose specific conditions that we find necessary to protect the health, safety, and general welfare. So the conditions stated within the associated resolution with this conditional use permit are intended to do just that. And also there were conditions of record associated with the property's zoning already in place. But the following specific conditions that are referenced in the resolution are the following. The conditional use permit is to allow this specific group home use as a skilled nursing facility. Any changes of use to another type of group home different than this facility shall require a new conditional use permit. The fencing along the east property line shall be a partial view fence comprised of 3-foot block and 3-foot wrought iron. Trees along the southern and eastern property lines shall be of evergreen variety. I do want to clarify, when I think of evergreen, I think Christmas. That doesn't necessarily mean pine trees. Evergreen just means trees that are known to have leaves year-round. They may lose their leaves, but whether it's December or the summer, there's the potential for leaves. And then lastly, the quantity of trees as part of this conditional use permit within those 20-foot landscape buffers closest to the southern and eastern property boundaries shall not be less than 1 tree per every 30 feet of length of those property lines. The landscape plan that has been submitted does meet that criteria. We just wanted to make sure that should they go in and amend that landscape plan in the future, this condition helped ensure that they couldn't change the variety or a tree count that fell below this number. With regard to the review of the major site plan, some of the criteria overlap, but I just want to talk about two of the items. One has to do with traffic, and the other one has to do with building elevations. So at build out, the site will generate a total of 431 daily trips, with 35 total peak hour trips in the morning and 37 total peak hour trips in the afternoon. That's considered a relatively low traffic generator. However, there have already been improvements made to help mitigate traffic. Along Treckle, there has already been a dedicated right turn lane constructed as not to disrupt northbound Treckle traffic flow. And of course, that dedicated right turn lane helps with trip traffic to the Agave House, this site, and whatever development occurs between this site and Treckle Road on the south side of that access drive. There's also a pedestrian connection from Treckle to this site. So you can see here there's an existing sidewalk along the north side of the access drive, and it will tie into the skilled nursing facility. And then with regard to building elevations, one of the conditions of record associated with the zoning is that there be four-sided architecture, and this plan achieves just that. There is a bottom ledge along the bottom part of the building of stack stone that you can see a sample of there on the left, and it will have a rust-like color metal roof with desert-type color palette for the stucco system that is comprised of the main part of the buildings. And there is a lot of visual interest on all four sides. I do want to point out that you do see windows that look like second story, but those are clear story windows. There isn't occupied space in that area. It's designed like an atrium type to allow light into the building space. With regard to the notification efforts, we met that which is required by code. We did not receive any inquiries or comments as a result of this notification. I do want to say that although it was a while ago, 5 years ago, there was a neighborhood meeting held for the zone change to R2 when the purpose of that zone change was to accommodate the skilled nursing facility. And a lot of the conditions of record that were a part of the zoning was based on the feedback received during that notification process. And I'd be happy to answer, not yet. So the recommendations, getting ahead of myself. I just want to stop talking. You're going to be asked to consider two. First is that staff recommends that Planning Commission move to approve the CUP and associated resolution subject to these specific conditions that I've already discussed. And then we're also asking you to approve the major site plan subject to a condition of record, which is that prior to building permit issuance, the property is to be combined into one tax parcel. And now I'm ready to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Jim?
No, then he'll talk some more. So.
I had one quick question, and I probably asked this the last time as well, but is there a traffic signal being built at the access point where Agave House and this skilled nursing will use?
No.
No, okay. And this is their primary access, right? There's no alternative outside of going through the gates of the apartments?
Correct, yeah, that access to the north really would just be for emergency purposes, but yeah, their main day-to-day access is gonna be coming off of that access drive between Treckle and here.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anything else? All right. This is a public hearing. Would any members of the public like to address? Oh, nope, the applicant. The applicant. Is the applicant here? Yes, he is. Sorry about that.
My name is Matthew Meyer. 5134 North Central Avenue, Phoenix, Arizona. We did start this back in 2019, so I'm very happy that Jim's still here and that he has such a great memory to remember everything that we did in the past, so I appreciate that. Thank you very much. We stopped this because of the COVID in 2020. It devastated our industry nationwide, not just our facility. We own a facility, Oasis Pavilion, here in Casa Grande. We built that in 2010. So we've been doing business in Casa Grande for 14 years. We have found that there's a need to keep more patients in Casa Grande instead of being sent to Chandler or South Phoenix. And that's why we're building a facility that just is single, one patient per room, as opposed to our Oasis Pavilion that has 2 patients per room. A lot of patients don't like sharing a room, so they go to facilities that are similar in Chandler or Gilbert or South Phoenix. So we're hoping to keep them here in Casa Grande. It's easier for them, easier for the family to visit. It's just better for the community if that stays here. We currently employ about 220 to 240 employees at Oasis, and this facility will generate about 100 more additional employees. If you have any questions, I think I took up much of your time.
Any questions for the applicant? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll open the public hearing. Are there any questions or comments from the public?
Gloria Johnson Story, 1245 East Laurel Drive, Casa Grande, Arizona, 85122. I just have a question, and James, I know I'm like you, evergreen is Christmas, but are these low water trees that they're talking about putting in? I think the desert landscaping is becoming more and more important as we give away more of our water. Are they low water trees?
I can't speak to that. I can get back with you. I can share with you the landscape plan.
James, I can speak to that.
Oh, thanks, Paul.
So under the Casa Grande Landscape Code, all the trees that we allowed to be planted are low water trees. There's a very specific list, and they're all approved low water trees, so they can only use those.
I'm very, very guarded about our water, as you well know. So that's very important. Thank you. Thank you, James. Thank you.
All right. Any others? Okay. We'll close the public hearing and back to the commission.
I'd like to make a motion.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion that the commission move to approve the conditional use permit and its associated resolution, DSA-19-00048, subject to the following specific conditions of record.
Second.
All right, Kathy, roll call vote, please.
Member Aldred?
Aye.
Member Vanderhayden?
Yes.
Member Hubbard?
Yes.
Member Peters?
Aye.
Member Estrada?
Yes.
And Chair Garza. Vice Chair.
Aye.
Thank you.
And I'd like to make another motion
Thank you.
that the commission approve the major site plan DSA-19-00069 with the following condition of record.
Second.
All right, thank you, Kathy.
Member Aldred?
Aye.
Member Vanderhayden?
Yes.
Member Hubbard?
Yes.
Member Peters?
Aye.
Member Estrada?
Yes.
Vice Chair Garza.
Aye. All right. Item G6, public hearing for a zoning text amendment to Chapter 17. Director Tice.
Thank you. Chair and commission members, this is the first of several zoning code text amendment items that you're about to hear. The first of which is basically a total rewrite of Article 9, which sets forth the procedures that the commission and city council must follow when considering zonings and rezonings. There's a couple definitions that we needed to add and clean up as well. So this screen gives you a little idea of high level of the changes that were involved in this rewrite of Article 9. Obviously, it's just a clear little renaming. We're specifying the maximum time frame for determining whether an application is administratively complete. We're specifying a maximum of 180-day time frame for processing most rezoning applications. We're increasing the surrounding property owner notification requirement to a minimum of 300 feet. We're requiring a statement regarding the impact of rezoning on housing costs, and we're making a slight modification to the process for public protest rezonings to clarify how government-owned property impacts the zoning area. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit more detail on each of these items. And of course, we've provided you with the actual ordinance. And, but I think at the end of my presentation, you'll have a really good sense of all the changes that we are proposing to make here. So what's really driving this amendment at this time is conformance with a number of changes to the Arizona statutes that govern how cities process rezonings. One of those was done this year and is going to become effective, I believe, on the 1st of January. And then one of them was actually done last year, and we've been implementing it, but did not incorporate that process into our zoning code. So the first change is that we specify that the initials, as well as any subsequent completeness review process for our rezoning application, we complete it within a maximum of 10 business days and require that the applicants be notified in writing of specific deficiencies that need to be addressed to pass that completeness review. This revision is necessary to comply with that revised statute that's listed. Now, the interesting thing about this statute is it actually gives staff 30 days to complete this completeness review, but today we do it in 2 days with a maximum of 5. So I did take advantage of a little bit more to make, to bump it up to 10, but that I could have bumped it up to 30 and still met the statute. The point I'm making is our processes here in Casa Grande are typically faster than those that the state is trying to mandate on us because they think that some communities are processing too slow. The second change is that all rezoning applications, except those for properties located within a historic district or which are zoned PAD, be approved or disapproved a maximum of 180 days from being determined to be administratively complete. It does allow the city council to grant a one-time extension of not more than 30 days and allows the applicant to request additional 30-day extensions. And that revision is also necessary to comply with a statute that's going to take effect on January 1st. So a couple interesting things about this provision. There was another state law that required all communities in Arizona to analyze how long it was taking us to process rezoning applications, residential rezoning, both in our standard residential zones and our PAD zones. And we were required to submit a report on that processing time frame to the Arizona Commerce Commission, and that deadline was last week, September 30th. Our report showed that it's taking us on an average of 135 days to process most residential zonings for residential zones other than PADs, and that's both single family and multifamily. But for PADs, it has been taking us about 207 days. So our PADs were not complying with the 180-day limit, but we do have an exception under the state law for our PADs. All our standard residential zonings were already being accomplished well within the 180-day limit, but now it's a limit that we can't exceed. Couple other things on this is we specified in the section on this ordinance that the commission, in hearing a rezoning for a residential rezoning, could table, but you can't table for more than 75 days. So you have a maximum time frame to table. Council has that same maximum time frame to table a matter. Now, when you table it, the clock, the 180-day clock is still ticking away. So you're using part of the 180 days. And in reality, the commission and council both could not table for 75 days or we'd exceed it. But either body probably has an opportunity to table for 1 or 2 meetings and still meet the 180 days. The other change that was done in the commission decision-making is that it takes a majority vote to pass a rezoning, which means like tonight, if you had a split vote on one of your zonings, 3-3, it would have been denied. So you don't have to worry about it. If it's a 3-3 vote, it's denied. If you don't get a majority of those of the quorum, you cannot get an approval for your zoning. So that was kind of just a little cleanup because we've had that happen in the past where we've had a split vote and we couldn't really take any action that evening. The next change is one that really was staff initiated to enhance our public participation efforts. We've now, by code, said that the mailed notice has been increased to all properties located within 300 feet of the subject site. Today, under both state statute and our local zoning, it's 200 feet, so it's 300 feet minimum. And so that is an increase, a staff-initiated increase to enhance. With the internal policy is, it's a minimum of 300, a maximum of 1,000. We can vary it based on what staff feels is really the impact of the rezoning request on the surrounding properties. The next change requires that in conjunction with the adoption of any rezoning or rezoning code amendments, the council, and actually the commission as well, shall consider a housing impact statement regarding the impact of zoning, rezoning on housing costs, basically. You can see the criteria, it's A, B, and C. That is a code, a revision to ARS that happened last year, and we have been implementing it. You saw us implement it on a couple of zoning cases this evening, but we're embedding it into the actual zoning ordinance, so it's very clear to applicants and staff that is a requirement that must be complied with every rezoning request. The last one, number 5, is pretty technical. It just modifies how we define what's known as the zoning area for purposes of triggering a public protest against a rezoning. You may not be aware of this, but if commission recommends a zone change to council, and before it gets to the council to consider it, if we receive a petition with a certain number of residences, property owners surrounding the rezoning area, it actually changes the voting standard for approval at council. It increases the standard. But you have to meet a threshold of a certain number of property owners within a certain distance of the site, and so we have to identify what's known as zoning area to calculate whether that petition actually triggered that change in zoning. So this change tweaks, the state law actually tweaked a little bit how we calculate government property that might be involved around a zoning site. And also what we've done here, the state law actually allowed us to specify the timing for the submittal of that petition. And so we've specified that any zoning protest petition must be submitted no later than 5 business days before the date that council is to consider the request. That will give staff a couple of days to review the petition to see if it meets the standard for enhancing the voting standard or changing the voting standard, and then gives us an opportunity to communicate that information to council before they get their agenda packet and consider the rezoning. So a little bit of a clarification of the public protest. Doesn't happen very often, but it does happen occasionally with controversial rezonings. We did also include 3 new definitions to make sure that the terms we were using in the ordinance were really clear. Just included the definition for director, department, and city manager. So with that, I'll say that staff does recommend that the Planning Commission forward a favorable recommendation to City Council for our request for a zoning text amendment to revise Chapter 1712, our definitions, and Article 9, rezone procedure of Chapter 1768, administrative procedures of Title 17 zoning, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions for Paul? I have one quick question. So the time frame, the 180 days, what happens if you don't meet the time frame?
I'm going to ask our city attorney to give the answer to that.
Do they automatically get the zoning
I
they
don't think
want?
this one said that it's automatically approved, right?
I thought it did.
Okay. I can look for you and find out.
I'm
There
just
was
kinda
one that
curious.
says that it was, that's like deemed approved, and there was another one that says it doesn't, so.
I've heard that, that's
Yeah.
why. I might work from another entity there, I think that happens. Okay. All right, this is a public hearing. So any members of the public like to speak on this one? All right, close the public hearing. Back to the commission.
I'd like to make a motion
Thank you.
to forward a favorable recommendation to City Council for a request by the City of Casa Grande Planning and Development Department for a zoning text amendment to revise Chapter 17.12 definitions and Article 9 rezone procedure of Chapter 17.68 administrative procedures of Title 17 zoning. Oh, gee, that's a mouthful.
Second.
All right, Kathy.
Member Aldred?
Aye.
Member Vanderhayden?
Yes.
Member Hubbard?
Yes.
Member Peters?
Aye.
Member Estrada?
Yes.
And Vice Chair Garza.
Aye. All right, item G, public hearing and recommendation for amendment to definitions related to accessory dwelling units. Director Tice. No, Jacqueline.
All right.
Welcome, Jacqueline.
Now it's my turn.
Thank you for being here.
Good evening, Commission. So the next couple text amendments will be addressing affordable housing and infill lots. Just, and these are a few text amendments that we've been working on for a few years. So a little overview on the ADU text amendment will allow for accessory dwelling units as a permitted use within our urban ranch, rural ranch, suburban homestead, single-family residential, which consists of R1 and R1A, as well as multifamily R2, because that is also allows for single-family residential development, our R4 mobile home residential development, as well as planned area developments. The proposed standards are in compliance with House Bill 2720 that was passed by this year's state legislature and goes into effect on January 1st. Although the bill only applies to cities that have a population over 75,000, City of Casa Grande is on the cusp of meeting this population threshold, and we've been wanting to allow for ADUs. We've just kind of been waiting to see what the legislature was going to do and kind of mirror what they were proposing. So what is an ADU? It's an independent housing unit with its own kitchen, bathroom, living, and sleeping space. These units are smaller in size than the primary residence. They're also known as casitas, mother-in-law units, granny flats, backyard cottages, as well as carriage houses, and they can be attached or detached. Some of the goals of implementing ADUs is to provide an alternative supply of affordable housing. These residents are typically seniors or young adults. It supports multi-generational living, provides a supplemental income to homeowners, and allows for diverse and flexible housing options within a neighborhood and promotes mixed income communities. And it also permits a housing style that already exists in the community and provides a legal avenue for upgrades. Here are some of our development standards that we're looking at. Per the state legislature, they're limited to 75% of the gross floor area or 1,000 square feet. Some of the setbacks requirements is not located in the front or corner yard, side yard setback. Side yard setbacks are 5 feet or whatever the zoning district allows is less. I just want to note that in R1A, you can have up to a 3-foot side setback. And then the rear yard is 5 feet. Regarding building height, subject to the single-family residential zone district standard in which the ADU is located. And I wanted to note that on the building footprint, per our current standards, accessory structures, and this would also include ADUs, located in the rear yard setback is limited to 25%. Regarding notification efforts, we did hold an open house to look at these text amendments in July in conjunction with Public Works and some of their proposed construction. The meeting was well attended, with approximately 40 community members attended, and we have received a lot of input and inquiries on local contractors that want to build these. And then we did a display ad in the dispatch. I did not receive any other comments or questions regarding this text amendment. So with that, staff recommends the Planning Commission forward a favorable recommendation, and there twice, to City Council for a request by the City of Casa Grande for the following zoning code text amendments as noted. So happy to answer any questions the Commission may have.
Questions for Jacqueline?
I got one.
Great.
I'm just wondering if this is going to generate a lot of pushback from HOAs, or do they have to fall in line?
So with the state legislature, this does not supersede their CC&Rs. So if they are prohibited in the HOA, then they wouldn't be allowed. They would have, or basically the CC&Rs would have to be revised to allow them.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Do they have like a separate yard entrance for all these? How do they get in and out of the yard? Is there a set way they have to do it? Do they go through the house, through the garage, to the outside, or?
It could vary.
Okay,
Yeah.
They're not making anybody put any restrictions on that yet at all, or?
So there's a couple different scenarios. If they're attached,
Right.
they probably will could have a separate entrance or could share an entrance with the main home, right?
Correct.
If they're detached, obviously they're gonna have their separate entrance. I don't know how the entrance, whether or not it comes through an alley or through the driveway, or how it's configured really is gonna be up to the property owner, because the property owner is gonna own both the primary house and the ADU, obviously.
So does that play into the overall space allotted to that? I mean, as far as the percentage of the backyard, if they have to pour something different for entries and exits?
Not necessarily. We are limiting the ADU to 25% of the required rear yard area, which will limit the size. Lots that are very deep will have more opportunity to build an ADU, a larger one. Lots that just have the minimum 20-foot rear yard setback will be very limited in the size. So it's going to be a real variety depending on the lot size, but in every case, the property owner is going to make those choices because they're going to own both the primary house and the ADU.
All right, thank you.
All right. I think it's a great product. It's kind of nice to have options for our parents. This is a public hearing. Are there any members of the public that would like to address this item? All right, closing, back to the commission.
Make a motion.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Member Peters?
I'm making a motion to forward a recommendation to City Council for a request by the City of Casa Grande for the following zoning code text amendment. According to the following chapters that are proposed to be amended. You want to go through those again? It's kind of an oddball motion, but that's the best I can do at this time.
Said revisions establish accessory dwelling units permit, yes, and those zoning categories. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Kathy?
Member Aldred?
Aye.
Member Vanderhayden?
Yes?
Member Hubbard?
Yes.
Member Peters?
Aye.
Member Estrada?
Yes.
Vice Chair Garza?
Aye.
And Chairman Garza, real quick, just to go back to your question, I did confirm that there is nothing in the statute that talks about it being deemed approved. And probably because it's a zoning request and, you know, those can't really be just automatically approved. But it will be something that has to be in the report that Paul talked about, you know, the time frame that it takes for us to approve those. So I just want to let you know, it will not be automatically deemed approved.
Just some, interesting. Because why put it in regulation if they can't regulate? I don't know, weird. I don't know, I'm asking too many questions on a non-agenda thing.
Thinking out loud.
Thinking out loud. All right, item G8. Public hearing for a zoning code text amendment related to manufactured, modular, and section dwelling units. And this one is Jacqueline as well.
So this text amendment is to allow for manufactured homes as a conditional use permit within certain R1 zoning districts by creating an overlay zone. Currently, manufactured homes located on individually owned lots or within leased rented spaces within manufactured home parks are allowed in R4 zoning district or through a PAD. However, prior to 1999, manufactured homes were allowed in certain subdivisions with the CUP. So this proposed text amendment is proposing to go back to the future and reinstitute previous policy and allow manufactured homes in R1 with this overlay with the CUP. Staff has implemented design elements that reflect stick-built home construction, such as front porches, carports, and pitched roofs. These design standards will help to ensure that manufactured homes will fit the character of single-family zoning districts. Here are the design standards that we're looking to implement with this conditional use permit. They would need to be within new manufactured homes in the last 5 years, have a pitched roof as well as a covered porch, and as well, so I'll leave that there. And then the first area we're looking at doing is located south of Florence between Treckle and Pueblo and north of Doane. I want to note that this area, some of these areas was already allowed, so there are many older manufactured homes that are considered legal non-conforming, and they cannot be replaced. So once they're replaced, a manufactured home cannot go back on this lot. So with this conditional use permit, they would be allowed to go through the CUP process and do a new manufactured home. There's also a lot of vacant lots in this area as well. And then on the second location is located west of Pinal, south of Cottonwood, in the R1 zoning districts highlighted here in red. And I did want to note that we just left it for R1 and did not want to include R2 because R2 does allow for a mix of multifamily as well as single-family residential development. Regarding notification efforts, again, this was part of our open house in July. And we did receive one comment card expressing support for this text amendment, and then the display ad was published. I have not received any other additional comments or questions regarding this text amendment. So with that, staff recommends that Planning Commission forward a favorable recommendation to City Council for request for the City of Casa Grande for zoning code text amendment relating to manufactured, modular, and sexual dwellings that amend the following chapters. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for Jacqueline? So this overlay is, this could be for any new development in an R1 if they wanted to choose to diversify products?
In these areas, yes.
Only in those areas?
Yes, only in these two areas.
Ah, got it. But nothing, it wouldn't be allowed for any new R1 zoning?
Correct.
Okay.
And this is just something we want to see how it goes. I mean, we could expand it in the future, but these were just areas that were allowed previously and where we get a lot of requests for this type of product.
Sure. All right. Thank you. All right. This is a public hearing. Any members of the public like to address this item? Seeing none, back to the commission.
I'd like to make a motion to forward a favorable recommendation to City Council for a request by the City of Casa Grande for a zoning code text amendment relating to manufactured, modular, and sectional dwellings that amends the following chapters as stated.
Second.
All right. Kathy?
Member Eldred?
Aye.
Member Van Terheyden?
Yes.
Member Hubbard?
Yes.
Member Peters?
Aye.
Member Estrada?
Yes.
Vice Chair Garza?
Aye. And finally, G9, public hearing and recommendation to City Council for another zoning code amendment for the parameters of non-conforming lots of record, maybe? Oh, close, yes. Jacqueline?
All right, so this proposed text amendment provides administrative relief to non-conforming lots of records where under the current code, when a lot size doesn't meet the current zoning code, or if they need setback relief, it has to go to the Board of Adjustments to be granted. So by allowing this to be completed administratively, it saves time, resources, and money for the post-development. The result of this code revision will be to remove regulatory barriers to the construction of new residential dwellings on smaller infill lots. Many of these homes will typically be smaller, affordable homes constructed by the homeowners. And here's just some images of old plats that do not meet our current code. I just wanted to show you an example of what this means. So in this current lot, located in the Eastland Park plat that was created in 1949, it's zoned R1, which requires a lot to be 70 by 100. However, this current lot is 50 by 109. And the R1 setbacks are 5 feet and 10. So under this text amendment, it would allow for the residence to be built with the current lot width and with a setback reduction of 3 feet, 5 inches, and 7 feet, 1 inch.
Side yard setback.
Side yard setback, sorry. It would not get any relief from the front or rear because it meets the length requirement. Again, this was proposed and shown at the open house, and we did not have any comments or questions on this request, but it will help tremendously with infill development. So with that, staff recommends Planning Commission forward a favorable recommendation to City Council for request by City of Casa Grande for the following zoning code text amendment. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for Jacqueline? No? Okay.
If I might, I'd just like to say that this text amendment, pretty much all the ones that Jacqueline's been talking about are kind of our staff's intent is to try to facilitate the construction of more infill development, specifically for affordable housing, and to try to streamline our review process as much as possible to push things like this lot exception that currently has to go to the Board of Adjustments down to the staff level, so we can process those administratively in less time and less cost. So we're trying to streamline and remove some regulatory barriers.
Thank you. All right, public hearing. Any members of, I'll open the public hearing. Any members of the public want to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll close and back to the commission.
I'd like to make a motion. Last one. I would like to recommend that the Planning Commission forward a favorable recommendation of the City Council for a request of the City of Casa Grande for the following zoning code text change or text amendment with said revisions defining and a non-conforming lot of record or establishing parameters and the build of non-conforming the lot record. The following chapters are proposed to be amended as follows.
Second.
Kathy?
Member Aldred?
Aye.
Member Vanderhayden?
Yes.
Member Hubbard?
Yes.
Member Peters?
Aye.
Member Estrada?
Yes.
And Vice Chair Garza.
Aye. All right, reports from Paul.
Okay, we approved a minor site plan for the redevelopment of the Casa Grande Mall. I'm sure you've all been seeing that construction happening. It's pretty exciting. And so that's sort of in transition. It's a great project. We also approved a major site plan for the Courtson Road Sewer Lift Station. I'm sure you've all seen the new sewer line being put in Courtson, and this lift station, that's actually a force main, and this lift station is what's gonna move that sewage from basically east to west. City Council approved a rezoning for that, in our airport industrial park for that custom truck project that you recommended from I-2 to I-1. And council also approved a final plat for the Lowe's, I think that's the Breaks Plus, the plat for NRS, and the re-subdivision plat and the promenade for the Fairfield Inn that's under construction. So lots of new, good development occurring that's come through commission and onto council. So that's all I have to report. Oh, I want to apologize, I did not print out your monthly development reports. So what I can do is I'll print those out and email them out to you, if it's okay.
Thank you. Thank you again, Member Estrada, for your service to the community. We'll miss you and your hoorahs. All right, we are adjourned at 7:40.
It's official.
I want to take